So this is it. This is the ending of the final battle of My Hero Academia. Because in this chapter, Izuku finally defeats not only just All for One, but also Shigaraki. And that's it. I don't know how many more chapters we have left in the series, but my guess, probably got 2 or 3 at this point, I'm assuming. But this is it. If there's any more villains after this, I would be pretty surprised, but it seems like it is over, at least for the fighting portion of this series. But, you know, of course, we'll get into how all that happened. Because coming off of the previous chapter, we saw that all of the heroes that were left were essentially helping Izuku to get one last punch on All for One / Shigaraki, which he successfully does with the final embers of One for All. And once he hits All for One with this, All for One is pretty much done. Like, he realizes that his regeneration isn't healing his body, and he wasn't even able to use danger sense to pick up on Izuku about to hit him because all of the other heroes helping him in that instance were like throwing it off. And apparently it's due to his body being exhausted and his mental state being destroyed as well, because, you know, we saw that once All for One came through Shigaraki and took over the body once again, he was like in this big emo state because Yoichi, his brother, had finally died. Like, the vestige of him died, being forcefully given to Shigaraki / All for One to break through that Tenko barrier. And his body is beginning to crumble here. And it actually goes back to All Might saying that if One for All was given to like a person with a weak body, they would explode essentially. And Izuku saying like, hey, you know, All for One, this is the power that was cultivated by 9 users over like the course of around 100 years, maybe a little more than that. We don't get an exact timeline, but it's something like that. And I guess this is just a cool way of saying like, hey, everyone did their part. Even though, like, it really started with the 4th user when he started abusing the power stockpiler aspect of the quirk and started beefing it up. And then, of course, it was All Might who really made it into the god level power that it became. But everyone worked together to eventually get it to the point of where it's with Izuku passing on the final embers to All for One here, finally breaking through to him. And it's essentially One for All that is killing him, not just Izuku, you know, exclusively. And as All for One is dying yet again, different from when he died against Bakugo, he's more like, I haven't achieved anything yet. You know, I'm the Demon Lord, I gotta fulfill my dream. And in his last moments, he's like, I'll just start all over again like I did with Shigaraki. I'll just pass this All for One quirk on to somebody like Izuku and I'll take over their body. And that gave me hope. Not hope that All for One was going to come back, but hope that Izuku would get the All for One quirk. And then maybe he would get back the One for All quirk as well, and then he would have both of them, and then that would just allow him to essentially do anything, I guess, right? Almost anything. Even fix the quirk singularity, which is what my theory was for a while. I thought Horikoshi was going to take even more ideas from Avatar: The Last Airbender than what he already did. I won't spoil what happens at the end of Avatar, even though it's like over 10 years. No, almost 20 years old at this point, but you should really watch Avatar if you haven't. Horikoshi borrowed a lot from that series. I mean, a lot. Which I don't think he's actually openly admitted to, surprisingly, but yeah, I thought Izuku was going to get One for All and All for One, and then, I don't know, do some kind of quirk god stuff to save the world, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Because now that he's finally passed on the last ember with this last punch, and it, you know, dwindling away and dying along with All for One at the end of this chapter, I think Izuku is completely quirkless. But first, guys, let's talk about GamerSup's new Waifu Cup launch, and this week it's Panda. And you're definitely going to want to grab yours as soon as possible because these things sell out so fast. It's pretty crazy. We've got a pretty cool aesthetic design this time, Chinese inspired, of course. And also, you're going to want to pair it with the new GamerSup's flavor, Strawberries and Cream. This also has a pretty aesthetic design to it, and the taste is pretty straightforward. It's strawberries and cream, which tastes great, and if you like that flavor profile, you're gonna absolutely love this. So guys, get your new Panda Waifu Cup and Strawberries and Cream GamerSups by checking the link in my description, and make sure you use code BIGZ for 10% off. Thanks, guys. So I don't know what Izuku is going to do after this. I know I keep going back to Endeavor's vision of the future that he saw when he was fighting against All for One like 2 years ago. and he saw like Bakugo, who had like Ed Shot's braid in the back of his hair, and we saw like Izuku with an updated costume that had like Gran Torino's cape with like another cape attached to it. So unless that was kind of just like what could have been or what literally was, it seems like Izuku will be a hero after this, but I really don't know what's going to happen because he's quirkless essentially at this point, right? Unless his body like retains strength from One For All, but he just doesn't have the One For All quirk. So essentially he's just like as powerful as like, I don't know, Death Arms or something, but he just doesn't have the god tier level of power that One For All was giving him maybe. You know, kind of like when you take steroids for a while and you still retain like the tissue that it gave you to some extent, even though your hormonal profile isn't jacked and beefed up the way that it was with the artificial hormones that it was giving you. But anyway, as All For One is dying, he's going even more into his emo mode, and he's kind of becoming pathetic here because he's like, all I wanted to see was Yoichi. I'm sad that Yoichi's gone now. Yoichi's brother, you know, we're talking about the final ember coming through with this punch here. It's like the last semblance of Yoichi representing the One For All quirk itself, like fully dissipating. And this is just confusing to me because All For One kind of cared about Yoichi at some point because, you know, it was always just him and his brother. Like, they were born of the mother who was the first quirk user, essentially the first person to have a quirk. She was a quote-unquote Lady of the Night. Can't really get too much into details on that, but you know what I'm talking about. They actually changed it in the volume release. Like, when that chapter was released in the, you know, Shonen Jump magazine, they called her like a Lady of the Night, which means, you know, it means other things. She does things for money, or that was the implication. And then they just changed it in the volume to like, no, she's not that. She was just some lady. But because she died giving birth to One For All and Yoichi, it was kind of just them as kids. So that was like the only thing that All For One had. But then later on, he just killed him. Like, once the whole battle between One For All and All For One started really happening, he just killed Yoichi, and he didn't really seem to care too much about it. And now he's just like, oh, I always wanted my brother, Yoichi. And it's like, shut up, dude. It's like, I know that All For One is trying to be portrayed as pathetic here, because even Izuku calls him like a lonely man, because that's essentially what he always was. But man, it is truly pathetic, his ending here, for someone who was built up literally the entire series to be the end-all be-all. But I don't know, I guess that's what Horikoshi wanted. But as All For One is like dying here, we see like everyone coming together because Shigaraki is also coming out of the shadows here. And we see like Shigaraki, or the aspect of his consciousness or something, along with Izuku and the other vestiges of One For all coming together and like colliding in this punch. And this punch is taking out All For One. So he's gone now. And Shigaraki is back. He's taken over the body again. And apparently, what was keeping Shigaraki alive was the vestige of Nana. Because, you know, we saw the rest of the remaining vestiges being transferred forcibly. And it was some point after that when All For One took over and, like, quote-unquote ate Shigaraki's consciousness. But no, it was Nana that stayed with him and helped him stay connected without him completely disappearing. Now, it's unfortunate that we didn't get to see that. I was kind of waiting for the moment in the series where Nana was going to have like her one-on-one talk with Shigaraki, which they really didn't have. So it's surprising that Horikoshi just off-paneled that. I don't know, maybe he's rushing to the end here. Not really sure. But she did save, quote-unquote, Shigaraki in the end here, at least from completely dying so that he can have his final character arc. But also, another thing that I forgot to mention was Shirakumo / Kurogiri coming through here. He teleports at like the last minute in between Izuku and Shigaraki, and he's like pleading to All For One for like, hey, give Shigaraki back, his friends are waiting for him. And then he just dies. So yeah, I guess that's also the end of Shirakumo / Kurogiri. We're not getting Shirakumo back. He forever ended his life as the Kurogiri Nomu thing that was created by Yujiko and All For One, and it just goes back into his programming, because he was like programmed to be the protector of Shigaraki, even till the end here. Although he did still have somewhat of his consciousness, because he calls out to present Mike and Aizawa, and he's like, sorry guys, but you know, thanks anyway, but yeah, he's dead too. But anyway, now that it's just Shigaraki left with his body that's disappearing, we get the final conversation between him and Izuku. And this is where Shigaraki just completely gives in to the narrative that Izuku was painting for him. Like, he no longer is like, I'm just beyond repair, I'm gonna destroy everything. He's just like, nope, you know what, Izuku, you were right. I actually didn't destroy anything, and that deep down inside I was just a crying boy, like you thought this whole time. That's why I couldn't destroy your own hands. It was like All for One that essentially did that. But Izuku's like, yeah, I continued to fight because I couldn't forgive what you had done, but I also just wanted you to stop, and I wanted your sadness to be over. So, yeah, that's the conclusion here, with Shigaraki saying, like, hey, if Spinner's still alive, tell him that Tomura Shigaraki fought to destroy until the very end. Which he didn't, but I guess it's comforting for Spinner, which I guess means Spinner is going to survive this, which is cool, because Spinner deserves to live, if any of them do. The last time I think we saw Spinner was like when his fight with Shoji resolved, where he was essentially brain dead almost, because Yujiko and All for One like put multiple quirks in him so that he would be like, you know, a big factor in this final battle. It made him like giant and have super strength and all this stuff, and it really messed with his brain. So maybe he will survive this. Maybe they could do something to help him possibly, but this makes me think that he's going to survive. Still unknown if Toga and Dabi are going to live through this, but considering that Shigaraki is dying here, they'll probably die as well, since they're like the big trio and they all kind of connected from damaged childhoods. But yeah, after Shigaraki and Izuku have like this final talk here, where Shigaraki just accepts his fate and it's like, yeah, Izuku, I was just a crying boy, thanks for saving me. The crying boy referring to Tenko, who Shigaraki originally was, before All for One, like, you know, gave him the decay quirk and made him kill his family accidentally and bring him up as his new vessel to contain All for One. His entire life stolen from him. He essentially was always just Tenko, which we continually saw throughout the series being represented as like this trapped aspect of his mind. But Shigaraki's body is like completely dissolving here, and at the end of the chapter he's just completely gone. He's turned to dust. So it's like, what happened to Tenko? What was the point of all that stuff? And why is Shigaraki's final moment and character arc being wrapped up here in just 2 pages? I'm just confused by all this. I'm not saying it's bad. It's more so just par of the course with how Horikoshi has been writing lately. I wish I had more to say about this, but it just is what it is. It's a little anticlimactic. I'm not saying that there needed to be like a United States of Smash and everything blows up and then, I don't know, Izuku does something to bring Tenko back. Even though I thought that was going to happen, I don't need it to happen. I'm just confused as to why it's just suddenly wrapping up this way. But it is what it is. Again, going back to the quirk singularity, I don't know how that's going to be resolved, even if it is. The quirk singularity theory is that eventually quirks will just keep getting stronger and stronger until the point of where they will be uncontrollable by all people, and it will lead to the apocalypse. Like, just imagine like Ares' quirk, but like even more powerful, and multiple people have it, and it just keeps getting to the point of where, you know, all life ends because of that. Because we saw that Ares was unable to control her quirk, you know, growing up and whatnot. So it's still a thing. It's not like it's just gonna go away. But maybe just the ending of the series is like, yeah, we'll work towards mitigating that, and we'll find a way to make it work. Again, not sure what they're gonna do. Izuku is technically quirkless at this point. But yeah, like I said at the beginning, we probably only have 2 or 3 chapters left, right? Maybe even less than that, possibly. Of course, the series could continue. There's a few things, in my opinion, that Horikoshi could take in the direction to continue the series. It doesn't even have to be like a Boruto sequel or like a Shippuden sequel or something like that. You can just continue it organically with quite a few options, but maybe I'll make another video about that after the series is over, saying how he could have continued it. But yeah, let me know what you think about this in the comments, guys. This is the end of the final battle and the resolution of Shigaraki. He just kind of accepts what it is, and then that's it. If you liked the video, please give it a like. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.